So welcome back to part 2, and we're going to continue making our sloth head. So the next thing we need to do is add his eyes. So we've already added those classic sloth strips across his face. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my brown merino roving. I'm going to take a small pinch and I'm going to split it in half. So nothing too massive. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll them into balls in my fingers, like we did with the mice before. And you want to make sure that you've got roughly equal amounts of wool. So by rolling them between your fingers, you can usually tell that they're about the same. So this side just needs probably a little bit more wool. Okay, so that's feeling pretty good. So I'm going to place those into the little sockets that we've made for our sloth head. And I'm going to use my medium needle, first of all, just to felt straight down the middle of this brown merino roving. And do the same on this side. Oops. See, and this is a learner for you guys, and I've done this absolutely on purpose. When you felt the eye into place, don't stab really quickly, because what you'll find is that you'll end up skewering your eye and it'll come out. So what you want to do is just do very light stabs initially, and then once it's felted down, then you can go in a bit firmer. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that they're both symmetrical and looking about right, and then I'm just going to felt them down into the eye, making sure that they both look like they're the same size, and we're just going to felt them down into a round shape initially and get them nice and deeply set into our sloth's head. And then once you've got the initial felting down, you can then take your needle and go around the outside. You want to be able to tell that they're kind of inset into the head, if that makes sense. And we can always add a little bit more brown as we go along if we need to, so don't worry too much if your eye goes past the brown strips that we've added. So I'm just going to go in with my needle, my medium needle, for the other eye and get it to the same size as the first eye. I've just felted down. So now my eyes are in place, what I want to do is shape them. So what I want to do is I'm going to push my wool, my brown merino roving that we've just added, I'm going to push it upwards in the top middle part of the eye, just to raise that area a little bit. I'm just going to do the same on the other side. And then what I'm going to do next is I want to pull down the corners, these outer corners, downwards to kind of work with this brown strip that's already in place. So I'm just going to pull that down. So I'm just using my needle, my medium needle, just to catch that brown roving wool. Try and move it so you can see. And then I'm pushing it with my needle downwards into the rest of the face. I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So you want to get to the stage where your eyes are looking symmetrical and look like this. So you've got these kind of angled eyes where the top part goes upwards, and then the bottom I felted downwards and outwards, downwards on an angle, so it kind of works with the strip that's going across his eye here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take some more of my white Shetland wool, very tiny pinch. And what I want to do is just take a really, really small amount, so something like this, and I'm just going to roll it between my fingers. And then I'm just going to pull it apart like that. So I've got two pieces that are roughly the same size. And I'm just going to roll it again. And then we're going to place this at the base of our eye. Now I've swapped out my medium twisted needle for my extra fine twisted needle now. So I've gone extra fine. And we're just going to felt this white down into the bottom of our eye to create this lovely kind of tear line, if you like. So I'm going to felt it into the outer inner part of our eye, so it kind of goes about halfway up, as you can see. I'm just going to felt that in, so you just get a little hint of it. And then I'm just going to felt the rest of the white wool along the outside of the eye. And the fine needle just gives you that ability to really get that detail in. Whereas a medium needle would be too harsh and you wouldn't be able to felt and get this very fine element of the face into place. So you really need an extra fine needle just to get that additional detail felted down. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'll be back with you in a moment once I've felted it down. Okay, so I've felted the white tear line into the eyes of our sloth. So what we want to do now is add some pupils. And because I want to create quite a youthful looking sloth, I'm going to go with quite large pupils. So I've got some more of my white Shetland. I'm just going to separate it. So I've got a small pinch and I'm just going to roll it between my fingers again, like we did with the brown a moment ago. So I've got something that's about this size. I'm going to place it in the inner corner of our eye, because that's where it looks like something's looking at you when you place pupils there. And again, I'm just going to felt straight down the middle, and then as you felt straight down the middle, the wall should contract. And then get smaller and smaller until you've got the size of pupil that you're looking for. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, that's looking good. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more white, again, just at the corners, just to give that little bit of light reflection in the eyes. So I'm going to take a tiny, tiny pinch like this, separate it, roll it into balls, and then I'm just going to place this one in the upper outer corner of the eye, about 1 millimeter away from the pupil that we've just added. And also, you want to make sure that this is about 1/4 of the size of the eye pupil. So probably something like that size works well. And then the same on this side. The extra fine needles come into their own here. Just make life a lot easier for you to get that precision. Okay, so now I'm just going to trim away any extra bits of wool that I don't want that might be sticking out from the Shetland white. So just trim those away just to neaten it up, and we can go back over it again later. Perfect. So now I want to add his mouth, and sloths have these lovely broad smiles. So I'm going to go back to my brown merino roving, take a small sliver, and then again, I'm just going to roll it between my fingers. And now I'm just going to see where it's going to be best placed. So it could go here. I think this is too low. We want it to be, like I said before, quite close to the nose. So I think here is lovely. He's looking very, very sweet. So all I'm going to do is just hold it taut in place with my thumb and my finger. And then with my extra fine needle, I'm just going to felt it down. You could use a fine needle for this as well, but I wouldn't go medium needle because you'll end up with too much of an indentation, which we don't want. So extra fine or fine, but not medium needle. And then once I've got it into position and I'm happy, I'm just going to cut away those excess pieces of brown wool. And then I'm going to go in now with my fine double needles in my pen, just to speed the process up for myself. And like I said before, we don't want this to be linear. We don't want it to look 2D. So you want to get some indentation. You want to really push this brown wool into the face of our sloth to get it deeply set in, so it looks like part of him as opposed to something that's just kind of been added to the surface, if that makes sense. And the smile just instantly makes him look a lot more sloth-like. Now, once you've got your sloth mouth quite deeply set, what you can do then is go in with your either fine or extra fine needle and just create some little smile dimples for him. Just to lift his face even more. So the smile dimples, they're just little indentations about half the size of the eye socket that you made, And it just helps to really lift the face of our sloth and give him a bit of personality. So once you've got that in place, what we want to do now is focus again a bit more on his eyes. So I want to create a bit more brown around the edge of his eye here. So I'm going to go back to my Corridale, take a small strip, and I'm just going to place it probably just above the eye here. And then I'm just going to take my fine needles, felt that into position. Careful that it doesn't encroach on the eye that you've already added. Just keep it away from there. And just felt any excess behind for the time being. I'm just going to felt this round. And I'm just going to take my embroidery scissors to get rid of that excess there. And then just felt that down into position. Like that. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So I'll be back in a minute once I've added this section. Okay, so we're really getting there with our sloth now, so he's looking super cute. So the next thing you want to do is add the hair to the top of his head, so everything just blends in really nicely. So I've got an even lighter coloured Corridale here, which again is very taupey, so it just contrasts nicely with the rest of the sloth head. And I'm just going to tear some off. And what we want to do is just create the impression that everything's just blending nicely in with each other. So I'm going to place it on the back of his head, and then all these wispy bits here, I'm just going to felt in with my fine needles, just to kind of give it the look that it's all blending in nicely with the rest of our sloth's head. So I'm just going to place some of this on the back, and you can build this up. So don't worry if it doesn't look quite right initially, because we can keep adding. Like I said, it's better to start with not enough than too much and then not be able to take it away. So I'm going to felt it into the back first with my fine needles. And then I'm just going to blend it into the front. And I'm just using my needles kind of one over the top of the other initially, just to tack it into place and just see how it's all looking. Looking pretty good. So I'm gonna nail my colours to the mast, and I'm gonna felt that down into position. You could stick with this colour if you want to, but I like the idea of that two-tone effect with the sloth there, because that's what a lot of sloths tend to have. So I'm just going to go in again around those sides that I spoke about before. Again, just continuing to create that angle going inwards at the top of the head. And then getting a flatter area at the very top. So this is flat, this is going in slightly, you see. So I'm going to take a pinch more, and I'm just going to place this again over the top. Keep it relatively opaque, don't go in with too much, as I said, so you get a nice blend then of the different colours rather than having a really solid colour and it looking a bit odd. He looks a bit follically challenged at the moment, but we'll keep adding until we get to the point where he's looking properly cool. I'm going to go in with a bit more again, just to build on that. I'm just going to bring it down a touch more as well, just to get a bit more of a solid colour at the top part of the head, and then for it to kind of then obviously blend in with the rest of the head as we go into the face. And I'll come back to you in a second once this is all felted down. Okay, so our sloth is looking really sweet. So what I want to do next is add some eyebrows. Now I know that sloths don't actually have eyebrows, but I think for our sloth, it just makes him look super duper cute. So I'm going to take a touch, just a pinch again of that brown merino roving, and I'm just going to place them just here initially. And I'm just going to see how they look. So what we want to do, we can either have them going concave like this, which gives a cute look, or we can have them going in the classic arch. I like both. I'm a big fan of going upside down rainbow, so I think I'm going to do that with our sloth. So I'm just going to place them just above where the brown of his eyes are, and then I'm just going to felt that roughly into place initially, just to see how it looks. Again, I'm just using my fine needle. I don't know if they're a bit high. Let me just remove those. And that's why we don't felt them down too much, you see. And put them down a bit closer. See how that looks. Yeah, that's better. Okay, I think that one's not too bad, but that one was a bit too high. So I'm just going to felt that down in that kind of upside down rainbow look. So you don't have to be particularly symmetrical with this, because eyebrows kind of do different things all the time to the other. So as long as they're roughly in the same position and they're roughly the same shape and length, so you don't want one eyebrow really long and the other one really short, unless you're going for a sloth that's just had his eyebrows kind of shaved or something, he's looking properly on fleek, then yeah, you want to kind of make sure they're the same length. And I'm just going to keep going until they're embedded into the head. Okay, I'm just going to go back over with my fine needles just to felt down any looseness that we have. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push his eyes inward and just create a bit more shape under where we've added that eyebrow, just to create a bit more shaping in his face. And then I'm just going to felt underneath his chin just to get this a bit shorter, because what you'll find is the lower part of a sloth's face generally isn't that long. It's quite short and quite close to the smile. So I'm just going to felt that down and get that a bit more rounded. And I'm just going to felt down some little lines as well under his eyes, just to give him a bit more character. So the last thing to do is make some arms for him, so he's kind of like peering over a pocket or something like that, so it looks like he's tucked inside the bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a kebab skewer, just a regular ordinary wooden kebab skewer, and some of the corridale that we used for his eyes earlier on. I'm just going to split this in half. And then I'm just going to take my skewer and I'm going to work my way down the pointed end, although I've used this on a glue gun, so I might struggle to get it off, but we'll see how I go. So all you need to do, place the skewer over the top of the wall. Wall bats works better for this technique. Pull the top of the wall over, so a bit like when we're wrapping armature, and then just fold it round. And so we want these to be quite long, because sloths do have quite long arms. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to pull that off, and then I'm just going to use my fine needles and felt that all down onto itself, being sure to lift it up so we don't felt it into the actual mat. And you want to keep going so you don't have a hollow in the middle of here. So you can be quite brutal with this, but just keep turning it so you keep that spherical shape. So once you get to the stage where it's looking pretty good, just give it a roll in your hands. Just to muddle all those fibres together with the warmth of your hands and just help the felting. And then just go back in again with your needles. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to do the same with a second piece of Corriedale. So again, I'm going to place the kebab stick on top, pull the excess over, and then just wrap it round. Don't wrap it too tightly, because if you wrap it too tightly, what you'll find is that you won't be able to actually get it off of the kebab stick. So you want it to be taut but loose enough to be able to move it off the kebab stick. So once you've got to a stage where it's like this, just pull it off, take your fine needles again, felt it down initially just to make sure it doesn't unravel, and then just felt it until you get to the same size that you did with your first arm. So I'll be back with you in a second once I've felted this one down. Okay, so I've got two arms here, but they're looking a bit thin at the moment. So what I want to do is add a bit more thickness, especially to the kind of like the end part where his hand's going to be. So I'm going to take a bit more of that brown Corriedale, split it in half again, and I'm just going to wrap it around the lower part of his hand and then work my way up the arm, and then just use my needles and felt it down again. And the nice thing with the Corriedale wool bats is that it's really, really easy to felt, and it doesn't take long to get that smooth looking finish. It's a bit fluffier than other bats that I use, but for this I don't really mind, because sloths are furry, aren't they? And they're a bit kind of bedraggled and kind of messy sometimes. They look like they're properly, you know, they're loafers, aren't they? They look like they've been lying on the sofa all day watching TV, not doing very much. So I'm happy for him to look a little bit bedraggled. There we go. So that's looking a bit better. Just tidy up that end there. Get that a bit more rounded. And then same with the other one, I'm just going to add that little bit of extra wool. Okay, so once you've got your arms looking roughly the same width and roughly the same length, we're going to add them to the back of our head. So what we want to do is make sure they're nice and long so they kind of hang over the pocket, and they're going to kind of come down at an angle. So I reckon there, let me just make sure that that one can look about the same. That looks about right to me. So I'm just going to hold those into position, flip him onto his face, and then I'm just going to use my fine needles initially just to tack that into place. Be careful not to stab myself. And you want a reasonable amount of wool to go around the back of the head here, because we want this to be nice and secure. So if you just had a small amount of wool securing the arm in place, you'd probably be in danger of it being pulled off. So have a reasonable amount so you know that they can't really go anywhere. And really felt them down into the back of that head. And what you can do if you want to is you can cover this over with some more wool just to make it nice and neat, so you haven't got those contrasting colours coming through. Okay, so I'm just going to snip away that excess and felt down that last bit. I'm just going to cover it over with a bit more of that taupe wool that we used earlier on. And again, that just secures your arms into place a little bit more. You've got that extra level of security of the felt. And there you go, it's all finished. And imagine, if you will, that this is a little pocket or something like that, so you can just pop him there and he just looks like he's poking out of a bag or something like that. So he looks super sweet, and I know that my girls are going to absolutely love him. So if you've got children or grandchildren, or if you want to make them to sell, these are great little felted creatures that really do make people go, oh, they're so cute. So all you need to do is just get some super glue and then just attach a pin badge at the back so you can attach him to clothing and things like that. But he's super easy to make, and he just looks super effective once he's all completed, and really does look so sweet. So I really hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, please like this because it just helps me to make more tutorials. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, and I will see you tomorrow with more needle felting hints and tips. Bye!